All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of this thing I'm calling Jinder's Covers Cafe. It's basically like a little glimpse into the music and the artists and the art that inspired me and inspires me ongoingly as an artist and as a human being generally. This is a quick glimpse into the world of Bill Fay, who's a wonderful artist, something of a Renaissance man, really, you could say. Bill Fay first emerged in the late 1960s on a label called Deerham, which was a Decca subsidiary, and he made a couple of albums, a self-titled album and an album called Time of the Last Persecution in 1969 and 1970. The last one, Time of the Last Persecution, being sort of a very dark, heavy kind of work filled with, sort of theology and introspection. A really fascinating, very deep body of work on that album. And after that, he kind of disappeared from view for 40 years. Really, he was dropped by Deerham and disappeared off into his own world. Made an album in 1980 with a group of jazz players, but didn't end up being that album didn't end up being released until 2005, when the great David Tibet of Current 93 released that record on his Dirtro record label, and an album called Tomorrow, Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is a great record, but very under the radar. But really, the renaissance of Bill Fay came about in 2010, when, after being brought back into the public consciousness by people like Jeff Tweedy of Wilco and Jim O'Rourke and a few other people from that sort of orbit, he signed once again as a sort of an elder statesman now, signed to a record label called Dead Oceans, who are a great independent label, and he made an album in 2010 called Life is People, which is a fantastic comeback record, and then again in 2015 an album by the name of Who is the Sender. And then this year he also released an album called Countless Branches, which is a stunning, very kind of stripped down record as well. But yes, he spent 40 years wandering in the wilderness and figuring out his next move. I love Bill Fay's music. He's kind of like a universal grandfather of music, I think. He's, even as a young man, he sounded old. And now as an old man, he sounds like he's, hewn from some kind of oak or mahogany. He's filled with this kind of earth sort of sourced wisdom and depth. His music is definitely kind of carved rather than written, and I just love it. Here's a song of his called "The Geese Are Flying Westward" from an album of his called "Who Is the Sender," and I love this song. I often play this song on the piano, but I couldn't get the piano up the stairs into the bedroom where I'm recording these things, so I'll play this one for you. And I'd also just like to say a huge thank you to my friend Mr. Alvin Reed for letting me use his guitar. This is a beautiful 1967 Gibson J45 acoustic guitar, which many years ago, once upon a dream, was mine, and I ran into, as sometimes happens, a bit of a sort of a financial catch-22, and I had to sell the guitar. Sold it to my friend George Holloway, who also a year or so later had to sell the guitar, and he sold it to my dear friend Debbie Greenwood, with whom I perform regularly. And Debbie had it for a few years, and then had to sell it to pay for some vet's bills for a poorly horse of hers, and it was then sold from Debbie to my friend Alvin Reed, who very kindly allows me to use it for writing and recording and so on. And it's a great guitar. It doesn't leave the house. It doesn't generally come out on the road because it's very elderly and fragile and a bit like me. It also belongs to Alvin, and I would be absolutely horrified if it ever came to any form of harm. But it's a gorgeous guitar. So thank you, Alvin, for letting me use this one for this session. This is called "The Geese Are Flying Westward." Geese are flying westward, the geese are going home, above where I am sweeping in the factory below. The geese are flying westward, they know which way to go. The geese are flying westward, the geese are going home. Maybe I should have traveled to places I didn't know. Maybe I should have ventured to places I didn't know. Oh, but I don't think so. I'm so glad to have seen all the clouds unfurl and heard the echo of the deep. Oh, but I don't think so. I'm so glad to have seen the clouds unfurl and heard the echo of the deep. And the geese are flying westward, the geese are going home. Above where I am sweeping in the factories below. The geese are flying westward, they know which way to go. The geese are flying westward, the geese are going home.